Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of AEW's Dynamite Fyter Fest. Starting off the night, we have Will Ospreay. Ospreay is greeted in the ring by none other than Tony Schiavone. Ospreay grabs a microphone. He talks about Swerve and Page. Ospreay says that Moxley hates AEW so much, then why don't he just piss off? I thought that was a great line from Ospreay. Ospreay says the only reason why AEW sucks right now is because Jon Moxley is AEW World Champion. Can't say I disagree with Ospreay, but I think there's a lot more going on besides Jon Moxley being world champion for the reason why AEW is not doing so well as it once was. Ospreay says that Swerve might be a threat as well. Ospreay says that he will take a bullet for AEW just like he would have done for Swerve. Ospreay says it would be himself versus Swerve next week. But all of a sudden, Ospreay is interrupted by crew, Lio Rush and Action Andretti. Action Andretti then mocks Ospreay. Lio Rush says that Ospreay is the worst thing that has happened to AEW. Rush says that he wants a match against Will Ospreay later on in the night. Some interesting stuff there from Will Ospreay. Moving on from that, we have Jon Moxley taking on Mark Briscoe. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Moxley and Briscoe, with Briscoe keeping the pace of the match. Yuta then attacks Briscoe ringside. Moxley and Briscoe then both exchange in the middle of the ring. Briscoe then goes for a froggy bow on Moxley, but Moxley counters it with a submission, but the hold is broken. Briscoe then hits a Death Valley driver on Moxley in the middle of the ring, followed by a Jay Driller for a near fall. Moxley then hits a devastating foot stomp on Mark Briscoe, which allowed Moxley to apply another chokehold on Mark Briscoe. Referee sounds for the bell, and your winner of the match is Jon Moxley. Hats off to Jon Moxley for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a tag team matchup. It is Julia Hart teaming up with Sky Blue to take on Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa keeping the pace of the match. Storm and Shirakawa then both hit multiple hip attacks on Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Toni Storm then applies a chicken wing submission hold on Sky Blue. Referee sounds for the bell. And your winners of the match are Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. Moving on from that, we got the Hurt Syndicate in the ring. MVP grabs a microphone. He mocks the tag team division from AEW. MJF then grabs a microphone and says that he wants the AEW title back. MJF then calls out Mystico, a CMLL talent, one of the best talents in Mexico. MJF says that it will be himself versus Mystico at Grand Slam Mexico. Well, MJF versus Mystico at Grand Slam Mexico. But they're interrupted by Mike Bailey, Kevin Knight, and Commander. Commander has some choiceful words for MJF. Knight says that he wants a match, but MVP tells them no. Some interesting stuff there from the Hurt Syndicate. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a six-man tag team matchup. It is LFI versus Mike Bailey, Kevin Knight, and Commander. I thought this was a really good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with LFI keeping the pace of the match. Dralistico then hits a springboard destroyer. Roosh and Knight both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Bailey hitting a moonsault knee drop in the middle of the ring. But Kevin Knight hits a UFO off the top rope, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Mike Bailey, Kevin Knight, and Commander. After the match, the Hurt Syndicate with MJF announced that it would be Kevin Knight, Bailey, and Commander. They would take on Kevin Knight, Bailey, and Commander next week. And the Hurt Syndicate with MJF attack Knight, Bailey, and Commander. Also, this will be the first match that MJF will have since he has joined the Hurt Syndicate. So some interesting stuff there for MJF next week. Definitely looking forward to that. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's Max Caster's Open Challenge. Powerhouse Hobbs answers the Open Challenge. It was a glorified squash match, with Hobbs keeping the pace of the match. Hobbs ends up hitting the finish on Max Caster, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Powerhouse Hobbs. Hats off to Hobbs for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we got the main event of AEW's Dynamite Fyter Fest. It is Kenny Omega defending the international title against Claudio Castagnoli, Mascaro Dorada, and Brody King. I thought this was a great match, back and forth matchup, with Omega keeping the pace of the match. Brody King and Claudio then both exchange on the outside of the ring. Omega then hits a Snapdragon on the outside as well. Dorada hits a Hurricane Rana. Omega then hits a V-trigger in the middle of the ring. Claudio hits a giant swing on Brody King, followed by a neutralizer. Dorada then hits a springboard shooting star press to the outside. Omega then hits a one-winged angel on Dorada, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still international champion is Kenny Omega. After the match, Okada shows up. He comes down to the ring. He gets face-to-face with Kenny Omega. Both Omega and Okada hold up their respected titles. And then all of a sudden, Okada and Omega both exchange in the middle of the ring. So it will look like, and there was an announcement that happened last night as well, that it will in fact happen. We will get the rivalry continued between Kenny Omega and Okada at this year's All In, which I will talk about here in a second. A couple of things I want to talk about with Dynamite, man. Number one, was I a big fan of the 4-hour time slot for Dynamite? No. I think a lot of people weren't really thrilled with the 4-hour Dynamite. It had Dynamite leading into Collision. And some of you guys may be asking me, why am I not covering Collision? The reason why I don't cover Collision, man, it's really plain and simple. The reason why I don't cover Collision is because the matches that are on Collision do not have any kind of story at all. And those matches that happen on Collision really tend, usually 9 times out of 10 really don't lead into a pay-per-view match. They really don't. There might be one match out of the entire show on Collision that might lead into a pay-per-view show. That's why I don't cover Collision, because Collision's just, it's ridiculous, man. With Dynamite, though, it wasn't a bad show. It really wasn't a bad show. Will Ospreay shocked me a little bit. He had some really choice words towards Jon Moxley. The fact that he said, what he said as far as AEW, sucks. He's not 100% wrong. I mean, I was shocked that he said it, but at the same time, am I completely surprised that, AEW is not what it once was? No. I mean, I made it abundantly clear that Jon Moxley is the guy that's ultimately crippling this company. I mean, the Death Rider situation is not helping this company out at all. The one thing, honestly, for what it's worth, the one thing that will save AEW in the long run, to be honest with you, is that we see that AEW title again, and we see it more frequently on AEW Dynamite television, with title defenses possibly on Dynamite television. I think that might also project AEW in a bigger spotlight than what they have been for the past few months, especially since Jon Moxley's held the AEW World Championship. And we got that high-profile matchup at All In between Page and Moxley. We're gonna see how that plays out, man. I know a lot of people, are 50-50 that Moxley could possibly walk out at All In, still AEW World Champion, and he can hold on to that title all the way up until Wrestle Dream, where we get Jon Moxley defending the world title again against Darby Allin, and Darby Allin will be the guy that will dethrone Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. But I don't know, and I told you guys before that Darby Allin is a big wild card in of all of this. I know he's going to be returning to AEW, probably seemingly at some point. So, he's going to be the ultimate wild card in this. I know Ospreay announced there'll be Ospreay versus Swerve next week. I know also next week for Dynamite there will also be another 4-hour show. They're calling it the Summer Blockbuster. Looks like they're going to be doing the same thing they did last night next week, where it would be a combined show with Dynamite and Collision. I guess it has a lot to do with the, with MLB or with baseball or hockey. That's kind of counterbalancing, the TV schedule for AEW Dynamite and Collision. So we're going to have another 4-hour time slot next week for AEW's Summer Blockbuster, where we will have Will Ospreay taking on Swerve. Should be a really good match. But again, man, this is one of those things where, Dynamite, you could tell last night, if you're just watching Dynamite alone, they're trying. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and say, when it's bad, it's bad, it's good, it's good. No, if it's good, I'm going to tell you all it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. I don't think technically Dynamite's show last night was that bad. I really don't. Progressing the storyline here with Will Ospreay. Ospreay plays a big, wild card into this whole thing with Adam Page as well. Especially leading up to his match with Jon Moxley. Ospreay did say that he does have Page's back. Swerve's kind of on the fence right now. He still has, some, choice words for Adam Page. He doesn't really want to work with Adam Page. So, we have that situation as well. So, Ospreay does play a part into this. But again, man, it's one of those things where, after I watched Dynamite last night, you can tell they're trying. They're trying. I will say Masker with Dorado, I mean, he was great. I think it was Excalibur that said that he's like the next in line behind Mystico. Mystico is the main guy for CMLL. I'm all for a matchup between Mystico and MJF. I think it'd be a great matchup. I haven't really seen a lot of matches with Mystico. I've seen highlights of his work and what he's done in CMLL. But he is the top guy there, man. He is the top dog for them. He is the guy that's carrying that, that company on his back. And from what I've understand and what I've seen, it looks like he's doing a hell of a job by doing so. So, it's a lot of praise for Excalibur to give, Mascara Dorada, that praise that he's the next in line after Mystico, I guess, seemingly retires or he's gone from CMLL. So that's a lot of praise considering the fact that what I've seen, Mystico is great. And I'm all for a possible matchup between Mystico and MJF at Grand Slam Mexico. I'm all for it. It's going to be live from Arena Mexico. It's going to be a great event, a great show. So, I'm locked in for it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we will be seeing Mystico next week as far as part of the Summer Blockbuster event for AEW next week, the 4-hour special. So, a lot of people are going to get familiar, myself included, with his work. So, it's going to be great. And I'm all for a matchup between Mystico and MJF possibly happening at Grand Slam Mexico. So, hopefully that does happen, and it will make for a hell of a match. But, it was, like I said, man, it was a solid show. I'm not going to sit here and shit all over it and give my same speech about all they need storylines. No, the storylines are there. They're starting to slowly unravel. We have, especially with Will Ospreay. Ospreay's keeping that storyline, alive with Adam Page and Swerve. There's a story in itself right there. And it might be the one story that we have right now, but, it's something that it's progressing. We also have Toni Storm. She was in a tag team matchup with Mina Shirakawa to take on Julia Hart and Sky Blue. There really wasn't much of a rebuttal there between Monet and Toni Storm, even though Monet was ringside during this tag team matchup. But it's going to be, I think that storyline is going to be a slow burn between Monet and Toni Storm. But again, man, All In is, they're stacking the deck for All In. I told you guys before, All In is literally AEW's WrestleMania, especially with what happened last night when Tony Khan made that huge announcement that it will, in fact, be Okada versus Omega once again at All In, title versus title. The Continental title will be on the line as well as the International Championship. And like I told you guys before, I have a feeling that we're going to merge these two titles into one. So it's going to be great. I know a lot of people might not be, on board for this matchup because a lot of us have seen this match between Okada and Omega quite a bit. But I got to be honest, man. For those that, if you're a wrestling fan and you hate this matchup, I don't really know what to tell you, man. I don't understand. I understand people are like, oh, we've seen this before, we've seen it. But, bro, how many times are we going to actually get a chance to see it until these guys actually retire? This is one of the biggest rivalries of all time in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Two of the best in New Japan. And we get it here in the States. This will be the first time that we've seen these guys wrestle each other one-on-one in AEW. So, to see Omega and Okada lock horns in AEW and at All In, title versus title, it's going to make for a great match. This is going to be, and hopefully we get some story here between Okada and Omega, some background on the history that these guys have had, especially, they're both their tenures in New Japan and the matches they had. They had some 5-star classic matches between both of these guys in the matches they've had, and I think this is like the 4th or 5th match that these guys have had, so it's been quite a bit. I'm not sitting here saying that, this is like the 3rd match. No, it's been a few matches between these guys. But for me as a wrestling fan, bro, I'm all for Omega versus Okada. I am. I think it's going to be a hell of a match. And like I told you guys, and I already predicted this match was already going to happen. I said something about this last week, and it finally came to fruition. This is going to be a hell of a match. It's going to be a hell of a card. If you're looking at All In right now on paper, you got Adam Page versus Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. You got Mercedes Moné taking on Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship. And now we have the announcement of Okada and Omega, title versus title, also happening at All In. And it's only 3 matches right now that are on the books for this year's All In. So they're going to load this card up like you would not believe. And rightfully so, bro, because, for what it's worth, they're going head-to-head almost with WWE. WWE has 2 events that same fucking weekend as All In. So, and All In, they bring out all the stops. It's the biggest show for them of the entire calendar year. So, I'm looking forward to it, man. Right now, out of the gate, All In's looking very good. Very good. I'm very excited for the card. We got a couple more weeks until we get to All In. But I'm very excited. And the way, like I said, the way they're stacking this card up right now, it's starting to look very, very good. And my other thing would be cool. Again, this is just me being the fantasy booker mindset. It'd be cool as shit, man, if they brought in Bryan Danielson to be the special guest referee for this matchup. It'd be awesome. But that's just me fantasy booking the event or fantasy booking that match. But it'd be cool. And it would also be great to see Bryan Danielson somewhat a part of this year's All In, whether it's on a commentary thing or making an appearance. It would be awesome. It would make the place erupt. And it would be just great to see him, in AEW on TV. I mean, we haven't seen Bryan Danielson since the match he had where he lost the title to Jon Moxley, or at Wrestle Dream. So I mean, it'll be great to see Bryan Danielson somewhat in the arena, or the fans can see him on the pay-per-view at this year's All In, and hopefully they do something for that. I mean, I think the crowd would erupt if we heard Final Countdown once again from Bryan Danielson. Man, it'd be absolutely awesome. So I'll be locked in for it. But yeah, I mean, they're stacking the deck for All In, and I think it's going to be one hell of a night for AEW. But like I said, man, with last night's Fyter Fest, I mean, it was the Dynamite. I didn't cover the Collision part, like I mentioned earlier. I covered Dynamite's part of the Fyter Fest. It wasn't that bad, man. It really wasn't that bad. I mean, there was a lot of good moments, some good matches. The Fatal 4-Way match I thought was really good. I think, like I said, Dorada was the wild card for me in that matchup. He did a hell of a job. He had a lot of great moments in that matchup. Very acrobatic. And the fact that, I think it was Excalibur or Ian Riccaboni that gave him the praise that he might be the next in line to be the next big star in CMLL behind Mystico. So, I mean, that's a lot of praise for a guy like Dorada. Mystico's making, his appearance in AEW next week. It looks like we might get a matchup here between MJF and Mystico, like I mentioned earlier. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, bro, and the thing that got me was Ospreay, and I am a huge fan of Ospreay. I think Ospreay's great, but for him saying what he said last night brought in a little bit more realism to what the hell's going on in AEW. I mean, we all know at times that AEW is shit. And the fact that Ospreay says, well, one of the reasons why AEW sucks right now is because Jon Moxley is AEW World Champion. Yeah, it plays a big part in that. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Because like I told you guys, Jon Moxley and his Death Rider shit is ultimately the death of AEW. It's destroying the company with inside, and hopefully we get rid of this Jon Moxley shit because, like I told you guys before, when it pertains to Jon Moxley, bro, once this shit's all over, his credibility is way down. His legacy is shot to hell at this point. It's just not there. I don't think really people are going to give a rat's ass about Jon Moxley after all this shit's over, to be honest with you. He's going to have to do something that is catastrophic to get people excited again for him, to see him back in the ring after this Death Rider shit's over. To be honest with you, his legacy right now and his credibility and what he's done so far, it's been kind of tarnished since this whole Death Rider shit's happened. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I don't think it's helping the company at all. It's definitely not helping him at all. I think he has a lot to do with this creatively, to be honest with you. And for those people that think that he doesn't really have creative control over this, you're delusional. He has a lot of control creatively over this shit. I mean, if you look even, and Ospreay's right. I mean, the whole mission statement for Jon Moxley was, with this Death Rider shit, was to elevate the talent, to get them into the main event spotlight and everything else, and make them want to be in AEW. And if they didn't want to be a part of AEW, then get the fuck out. Well, the problem I have with that is that when he made this mission statement, he was destroying all the talent. He was bringing in guys like the Dark Order and beating the shit out of them. Beating the shit out of Brandon Cutler, trying to get some of these guys that we haven't seen on television for years and just beating the shit out of them backstage. That was pretty much the Death Rider's MO in the beginning. So you're not really putting over talent. You're destroying them, is what you're doing. And it's not really benefiting AEW at all. And there's a lot of people that were up in arms about this Death Rider shit, and they still are. And again, man, I'm gonna reiterate this. This could be something where if Jon Moxley walks out of All In with that world title, this could be something that could really, really bite AEW in the ass. This could be a big fucking problem. And this could be something where a lot of fans are going to be irate, pissed off, and, probably express their grievances towards this shit a lot more than what they have been, because there's a lot of fans that are done with this Jon Moxley shit. And the problem is, too, is that you have to look at the narrative, bro. They are pushing Adam Page like you would not believe. They really are. From the promos that he's had since he's won the Owen, the segments that he's had since he's won the Owen, they're really pushing Page to the moon. And to have Page walk in Arlington, Texas for All In and then have him lose, it could be a swift kick in the ass for a lot of fans, to be honest with you. To a point where they're like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? And a lot of people might get pissed off. If Jon Moxley walks out of All In with that title, I can bet your bottom dollar that there's going to be people that are going to be fucking pissed off with that. Because we know what the narrative's going to be at that point. We know that they're saving it for Darby Allin. Darby Allin would be the guy at that point to dethrone Jon Moxley. And that match will most likely take place at Wrestle Dream, due to the fact that it's like a full year since Moxley's held that belt. And 2, Wrestle Dream 9 times out of 10 takes place in either Tacoma or Seattle, Washington, the hometown of Darby Allin. So, that right there again, writes itself. I said the same thing about last year's Wrestle Dream when it should have been Bryan Danielson versus Darby Allin. If that would have happened, we would have never got this goddamn Death Rider shit and John Moxley, because I think the whole Death Rider shit's a fucking joke. So, again, that's also something that can happen, and I think that narrative alone scares the shit out of a lot of people, because a lot of people don't want to wait all the way until October to have John Moxley still carry that AEW World title that we've yet to fucking seen since last October. That title's been in a fucking briefcase since October of last year. So here we are now in this year, and we still yet to see the title. You have Marina Shafir walking around with that fucking title in a briefcase. We don't even know if the title is still... We don't even know what the hell it looks like. It could be dust at this point. You know what I mean? They might not even have the fucking title. It might just be the goddamn briefcase. We don't even know. John Moxley could have that title at his house and just walking around with the goddamn briefcase. Empty. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have not seen that title since last year. So... Again, that's also something that I mentioned earlier with the progression of AEW to make it a better show. We need to see that AEW World Championship, and we need to see it defended a lot more on pay-per-views, and we actually need to see the title on AEW television. I think that would also put AEW in a more better direction than what they have been. I'm not saying it's going to make a drastic change, but it's sure as hell going to be an improvement from what we have been getting for the past, 4, 5, 6 months now. So, I mean, it's something that they need to think about this, as far as going into All In. And like I said, bro, I'm 50-50. I would love to see Adam Page walk in and walk out Arlington, Texas as All In AEW World Champion. Absolutely. It would completely change the dynamic of everything in AEW. But there is that other, part of my brain in the back of my mind saying that there's a good chance that John Moxley beats Adam Page and Page walks out, or Moxley walks out AEW World Champion. And it could be something where it's disqualification. It could be something where Swerve Strickland gets involved and screws over Adam Page from him getting the world title, just like he thought that Adam Page had something to do with Swerve losing his title opportunity when he was attacked by the Young Bucks. So, I mean, again, this is something that could very much play into All In. And Swerve's already on the fence already with Adam Page, and he doesn't even want to work with Page at all, where Ospreay does. So, we're going to see how this is going to play out. But I tell you what, though, it's very interesting. I can't wait to see how this is going to play out. Hopefully they do it correctly and the build and the storyline's there. And hopefully they can capitalize on it, bro. But as far as last night, it honestly wasn't that bad of a show, in my honest opinion. It was a really, really decent show, in my honest opinion. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Dynamite Fyter Fest. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful. And remember,